Look how they massacred my boy.
Dude, seriously, what the f***, Suzuki? How'd you mess this one up so badly? You had like 25 years to make a brand new DRZ, and now this is all you got for us? I mean, really? We gotta go talk about this bike, man, because I think Suzuki really whiffed on this one, and they whiffed hard. This video is powered by Flying Eyes. Whether I'm riding on-road or off, they're my choice of sunglasses thanks to their thin and flexible stems, so I can ride for hours with no pressure points. Click that link down in the description below and use the code SC10 for 10% off your order.
Alrighty, I have a feeling that I'm probably going to be one of the few detracting voices on the internet about the DRZ or DRZ 4SM and 4S, the new DRZ, as I'm just going to call it. I think that there's a lot of celebration out there because the DRZ, it's a legendary bike, but it's a very, very old bike. You know, it's been around since 1999 when it was the K and the E, the K being the kickstart model and the E being the electric start model. Those were kind of like the ultimate DRZs, and then, you know, when the SM came out and the S came out, they were a little bit let down because they went, I think, from a 39 to a 36 carb, but the construction of it was really weird because everything was ready for the 39 mil carb, and then they just bored it down and choked it down to a 36, and that's why everybody does like FCR 39 millimeter pumper carbs and shit. So, you know, the DRZ has a long lineage and a massive aftermarket, and I actually owned a DRZ for a long time, and I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up getting rid of it because it was turning into a little bit of a maintenance nightmare. I bought my DRZ from a guy who, I kid you not, said that he was selling it to pay for legal expenses. Now, I don't know if those legal expenses were a direct result of the DRZ or something else, but it has a massive reputation of being a gigantic squid bike. It's also the bike that kind of contributed, by his own admission, to the start of Jake's channel. He was the DRZ guy, and he still kind of is. He built a lot of his stuff on the back of supermotos, like that CRF that he built. Pretty sure he even didn't he do like an XR 600 sumo? I can't remember. But like the DRZ is the core of the supermoto world. And you know, in intervening years, because it remained so unchanged for so long, the supermoto world changed around it. The KTM made 690 smc-r, and then because they own Husqvarna, they made the white one, and then now there's a red one that has solid cast wheels and all sorts of other things, and Ducati's entered the game with their 698 mono, and Kawasaki's got the KLX 300 SM, which is a decent bike. I don't love it particularly. And then Yamaha actually came and left the supermoto game with their 250X. So sumos have really kind of, they've expanded and contracted in some interesting ways. Supermotos are a huge part, and the people who own them are very passionate. And my 690, I'm getting a set of sumo rims for it so that I can have a dual sport and a supermoto in the same bike, because they're a very versatile motorcycle. And in fact, I'm such a big fan of the DRZ that I often tell a lot of guys I meet who are like, hey, I want to get into motorcycling. I don't really know what I want. I'm a little bit taller. You're a tall guy. What do you recommend? I always say DRZ 400 SM, because it's one of those bikes that can really do it all, and it teaches you a lot about what you want as a rider. And I say all of this to say, again, I'm a huge fan of the DRZ. I love that bike. It's so much fun. It's one of the few bikes out there where the entire ethos of it is to have fun on a budget. And there have been rumors flying around for like the last 6 to 9 months about whether or not we were going to get a new DRZ this year. And yep, sure enough, we do. We didn't know whether it was going to be a DRZ 450, whether it was going to be another 400, but just with fuel injection, whether or not it was going to be a 400 where they redesigned the motor, or whether they were going to punch it all the way up to 500 cc's. It was definitely one of those situations where people allowed their imaginations to run wild, and I think that we're going to see a lot of people get really disappointed once the DRZ actually gets out, the DRZ 4S and SM come out to the buying public, and people are like, yep, that sure is a DRZ, all right. So let's actually talk a little bit about the bike. Let's let you know exactly what's going on. So if you don't know, it is official that they have this DRZ 4S and SM. We're going to talk almost entirely about the SM because I'm not super interested in the dual sport side of things. If I was going to get a dual sport, a DRZ would not be my choice. Considering the fact that I have a 690, I think that should be obvious. But if I was buying another supermoto, it'd be a DRZ. So the SM has roughly the same power as the old one. I think they claimed roughly 38. I'll have the numbers on screen here for you. And the interesting thing is it's down on torque. It's down by almost, I think, a foot-pound. I found that kind of interesting because the whole thing with a DRZ is torque. So having a little less torque, especially when you're talking about 28 or 29 or 28 or 27, it kind of makes a difference. If you have 55 or 56, it's really hard to tell the difference. But if you are dealing with smaller numbers, every number makes a difference. Admittedly, we're not talking Grom numbers here, where 1 extra horsepower on a Grom makes a big difference. But, you know, why are we going down? One of the things that's unique about this iteration of the DRZ is they slapped a bunch of technology into it. So not only do we have fuel injection here, which is the big win, we have rider modes. We have 3 independent rider modes. One that is the sport map, that Suzuki does A, B, and C. So the sport map A, B is kind of like their super linear one, and then C or rain mode is one where it's really scooped out. We're going to talk about whether or not I think that matters later, but they also have full ABS and they've got traction control. Like this is a for what it is, thoroughly modern motorcycle. In some senses. In other senses, it's not, because they only stuck 5 speeds in the gearbox. Why? Why did you do that, Suzuki? That is a dumb choice. That is the biggest thing people complain about with the DRZ, is that it's 5 speeds. Right? That is still the biggest complaint against the KLR 650 after its re-release. It's still 5 speeds. I don't understand why they did that. Now you still have to go into the aftermarket to get your wide ratio transmissions so that you can run it at higher speeds on the highway. There's been this graphic floating around that shows how much of the engine is either redesigned or brand new. I'm going to see if I can throw it up here on screen if I can find it again. But essentially what I'm seeing is that this motor, it's almost entirely new. So when you widen the frame to allow for fuel injection, why didn't you just widen it a little bit more to put 1 more gear in the box? It can't be that expensive. Another thing, this motorcycle's a lot heavier. And I mean a lot heavier. Like, I think they added upwards of 25 pounds to this bike. And the DRZ was already kind of a heavy bike if you talk to people who've been riding it, especially comparing it to like other dual sports. 317 pounds for the S is really heavy. Especially, 317 or 18 for the Supermoto, when you consider that the 690 with just a few mods is under 370 pounds, or under 350. You get a lot more power for a lot less, or for just like a smidge more weight. The big question mark we don't know is what the price is going to be. There have been some like metadata finds that have put the price at like 10.5 Australian, which, if that's the case, I mean, it's really hard to read from one market to the next, but we can do some math by looking at the price of the S, or the current SM in Australia, and then run in some proportions to figure out what it is here. And I'll have that number on screen. But regardless, it's more expensive. I would be stunned if nowadays with this new DRZ, you could get it out the door at a dealership for like under 11 grand. And at that point, we're getting away from the thing that makes the DRZ the thing. It's supposed to be cheap. It's supposed to be a bike that you could just beat the shit out of and not care. Looks are in the eye of the beholder here, but they really just passed the DRZ through the modern Suzuki bike filter, and I really do not like the way it looks. It looks a little bit too much like the new Gixxis 1000 and the GSX-8S, and I don't like it. It's a little too Transformer-y. It's better than it could have been, but I don't know. I kind of like the old classic looks of the DRZ myself. I don't think people were clamoring for an aesthetic redesign. I mean, just throw bold new graphics on it, Suzuki. That's what you've been doing for 25 years. But that's basically the end of everything we know specifically about the motorcycle. And now we have to talk about this thing in a more esoteric way, and why I think Suzuki missed the mark so hard on this motorcycle. If there's one thing that the DRZ did not need, it did not need rider modes. It did not need an IMU. It did not need traction control, which is going to stop it from doing wheelies. It does not need ABS. I mean, maybe you need ABS to sell it in European markets, but like here in the States, you can buy non-ABS bikes still. So give us an ABS version and a non-ABS version, and allow you to toggle ABS off at the rear. You can do that on the S, or on the SM, but on the S you can toggle front and rear ABS off, which is kind of cool. I'd kind of like to see both front and rear be toggleable on the SM version too, because, you know, why not? But this goes back to that video I had made about the Harley situation and bikes basically being too expensive. This is a clear-cut case of throwing technology on a motorcycle and then charging more for it. The DRZ was already pretty expensive when you consider the fact that it was a 20-year-old motorcycle, and the biggest thing it had going for it was that it had fully adjustable suspension. But now it's got fully adjustable suspension. It's got this full suite of technology that it simply does not need, because it's not making enough power. Like, I know you think that it's a selling point, but a bike with 27 foot-pounds of torque does not need a rain mode. It does not need a street mode. It is constantly in street mode. The only time I've seen a DRZ 400 get away from a rider is on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and that's a comedy TV show.
I can't wait to drive this motorcycle that I definitely know how to drive. Too much torque!
Sure, people loop them, but, I mean, that's just because they're practicing wheelies. DRZs don't go down because they have a lack of technology. DRZs goes down because people are trying to have a good time on it. It's nice to see an updated dashboard, because the dashboard on the DRZ was comically out of date. And I'm glad they didn't put a TFT display on it, because it doesn't need one. I don't get it. I don't get why Suzuki did such a half measure here. They should have punched it up to 500 cc's. It should be making 50 horsepower. It should be making 30 foot-pounds of torque, like on the nose. And I know a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, if the DRZ is a 500, then why not just buy a 450 RL and get some street rubber for it and convert? Well, that's a ton of work, and that's a competition motor. You can't really run that motor without doing a ton of work to it. Like, it takes a lot of work to keep those competition supermoto style motorcycles running. And you didn't need to do a lot of work to the DRZ. That's the key selling point to me, is that it's a less fire-breathing motorcycle because it's not a competition motor. It's not a dual sport motor. The motor was never measured in hours. It's cheaper to maintain than the KTM supermotos with longer service intervals. And that's why people are still going to buy the DRZ. People are still going to buy it. I imagine it'll be a success. I just don't see this as the win that people are calling it. It seems like such a half measure. Now, I am as a motorcyclist, I'm not in the supermoto space that much anymore. I'm not super big into DRZ life anymore. So I would try to find somebody on YouTube who is. Go see what Jake has to say. I'll link his video down below. Go see what other people who are like Lamb Chop. I'm sure Chopsy's going to have something to say about the new DRZ because he's big into supermoto. Find your DRZ guy and see what they have to say, because they're going to be a little bit more accurate, I think, than I am. But just based on what I've seen and what I know with my time in the saddle on a DRZ, is that true DRZ guys are not going to dig this motorcycle. They're just going to be like, nah, f it. I'll just go get a 2005 that already has the pumper carb on it for like $4 grand. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know whether or not you're excited about the new DRZ. I'm actually really interested to see what public opinion is like on this motorcycle. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out Flying Eyes. They are my favorite sponsor for the channel. I probably shouldn't say that, but I love the Flying Eyes team. It is a local product assembled here in Austin, and I love supporting small business, and I'm super happy that they could be a partner for the channel. So go ahead and show them some love down in there. You can use the code SC10, 10% off your order. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.